Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. Well, last week we looked at the momentum or lack thereof marijuana-related legislation has in Indiana. Despite the state being one of just 17 without a medical cannabis program, and neighboring states, including Illinois and Michigan, allowing recreational sales, it doesn't appear that Hoosiers will be able to purchase legal cannabis anytime soon. In spite of that, some Hoosiers are still using it, and the market is growing rapidly in other states. Reporter Brock Turner has more.
On January 1st, Illinois legalized recreational marijuana sales, but for years, advocates had been laying the groundwork.
In the summer of 2014, when Illinois started the process of implementing the law it had passed to create a medical cannabis industry. So that meant passing regulations and then issuing a competitive cultivation application and competitive dispensary applications.
That's Dina Rollman. She's one of the folks who ensures one of the largest dispensaries in Illinois remains compliant. Rollman says positions like hers, which are now common, didn't exist back then.
There was no such thing as a cannabis lawyer in Illinois in 2014, but I sort of was intent on becoming one.
Rollman's own career path reflects the growth of her companies.
We've seen the Illinois industry itself expand greatly from having about 3,000 patients to now almost 100,000 patients and being on the cusp of recreational. And GTI itself went from being just an Illinois-only entity with one dispensary to now having 34 dispensaries open across the country. We're now publicly traded. We operate in, I think, 11 states. And so, you know, sort of the Illinois growth has mirrored GTI's growth in a lot of ways.
The rapid growth across the country has been slow to take off here in Indiana. State policymakers routinely cite the federal government's classification of cannabis as a Schedule I drug without medical benefits as a reason for not debating legislation. Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb spoke last year about where he stood on the issue.
Not allowing some hodgepodge national effort to organically spring up because folks are looking the other way. This would require medical research and science to give us the true evidence on both the medicinal value and the efficacy of recreational use. That's not here yet. As I understand it, there's about a 12-acre farm in Mississippi that's responsible for doing the research.
The FDA has one approved site in Mississippi, but research is being done across the country. Andy Seeger is the cannabis research manager at Chicago-based Brightfield Group. He and his colleagues research cannabis for companies that produce everything from common household goods to alcohol.
Some of the biggest growth rates we're seeing in users are 65 plus. We're seeing now that brands are coming online targeted to consumers, we're seeing female usage going up and normalizing. So it is across age groups, it's across racial lines, it's across gender lines, it's across income lines. It's up with everybody. We've now hit critical mass.
And many users are searching for products that improve their quality of life rather than give them a high.
We're seeing big growth in the market for the medicinal side. Patient numbers are way up. Adding things like chronic pain brings in a lot of patients. And that's the number one thing that we see users in our consumer data are using cannabis for when it's medicinal is chronic pain.
Jeff Staker is one of them. He spent 11 years in active duty serving in the military and has spent nearly his entire career working for the federal government in the civil service. He says he was prescribed opiates through the VA for nearly 10 years to treat chronic back pain, but he reached a point where his doctor no longer felt comfortable prescribing them.
I was running the risk of accidentally overdosing. So in 2016, my doctor and I, obviously we discontinued it, and I got off the meds and stuff, and I asked my doctor what he thought about medical cannabis and all the states passing these medical cannabis laws. And he said that if he could prescribe and recommend it, he would, but he can't because of obviously the federal restrictions and everything. So I started Hoosier Veterans for Medical Cannabis.
Staker applied for a medical cannabis card through the state of California, and from there it was pretty easy. He receives his cannabis just like any other medication from the VA near his home in northern Indiana.
Yeah, I have a family, and it doesn't deter from any of it. It gives me a better quality of life. Other than that, maybe I would have to sit around and nurse my my ailments with something else that wouldn't be so beneficial to me.
Staker has made it his mission to inform people about the benefits. That's one of the reasons he started the advocacy group Hoosier Veterans for Medical Cannabis.
So we're gonna keep up the good fight, and I'm there to support you, and you support me. I appreciate it, and let's keep moving forward. Thank you.
Despite calls from advocates, there doesn't appear to be much momentum to declassify the drug federally, which is likely what's keeping Indiana from having much of a conversation. The industry, however, isn't waiting.
The money is really going to be the accelerator here. It's what's going to lean on politicians, it's what's going to lean on markets to open, it's what's going to lean on what happens. This is big time now. This is big money. This is the backroom money that gets things done. These are big companies that are going multi-state operators, so that they've got locations in each state, despite state restrictions saying you need to grow, process, and sell within a state. Well, we'll just go to that state and set all three of those up, and now we have a presence there as well. So, this is quickly professionalizing from just people growing on their own and wanting to be left alone to a completely new, big sin industry.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Brock Turner.
Jeff Staker recently announced he will run for a seat as Senate representative and will make legalizing marijuana part of his platform.